What is this?
Monica Rivera?
I have given everything.
We've reviewed
to
the
you.
scholarship fund records. Turn around.
I built something here.
Post-grad subject confirmed. Beginning detention inside main office.
I was going to make it right. I just needed more time.
Turn around, please. Hands behind your back.
This is Monica Carol Rivera, 51 years old, principal of Eastbrook Academy, a public high school in Columbus, Ohio, serving 1,400 students, 63% of them from households below the poverty line. For 9 years, she told students that she was fighting for their futures, that the Eastbrook Academic Excellence Scholarship Fund existed because of her, that because of her work, 17 students a year were getting money for college that they never could have found on their own. $780,000 had passed through that fund over 9 years. Not $1 had ever reached a student. Within 48 hours of this footage, state auditors would seize bank records from 4 separate accounts, a personal laptop containing 9 years of falsified scholarship award letters, and a filing cabinet in Rivera's office holding fabricated financial aid applications bearing the names of real students who had never applied. 38 criminal charges. $780,000. 214 students who had been told they were finalists, runners-up, or recipients of a scholarship that existed entirely on paper. 9 graduating classes. 9 years of seniors who walked across that stage believing someone had fought for them. None of it was real. Before we continue, do you know where the scholarship money at your local school actually goes? Do you know who controls it, who audits it, and whether there is anyone checking that the awards are real? Let us know in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. We cover cases of institutional betrayal like this every single week. The stories that the people in power are counting on you not to see. Monica Carol Rivera was born in March 1973 in Cleveland, Ohio, the third child of 4 in a family that lived in a 2-story rental on Kinsman Road in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood, where the corner stores stayed open past midnight, and the elementary school across the street had the same reading textbooks it had used in 1964. Her mother, Evelyn, worked the morning shift at a commercial laundry facility in Garfield Heights, pressing and folding linens for hospital supply contracts. She was on her feet from 5 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, 5 days a week, for 21 years. Her father, Charles, drove a city bus on the 14 line through East Cleveland for 17 years before a knee injury took him off the route. He drove a forklift at a warehouse in Bedford after that. Less money, worse hours. He didn't complain about it in front of the children. Monica shared a bedroom with her younger sister, Tamara. They had one dresser between them and a curtain strung on a tension rod that Tamara pulled closed when she wanted privacy. The family ate together every evening. It was one of Evelyn's rules, and the meals were simple and consistent. Rice, beans, chicken thighs, whatever was marked down at the Giant Eagle on Friday. Evelyn kept a small notebook in the kitchen drawer where she tracked every grocery purchase and every bill. The notebook had a divider tab labeled savings that rarely had anything written under it. What Monica had, from early on, was school. Not just attendance, engagement. Her 4th grade teacher at Harvey Rice Elementary, a woman named Mrs. Patterson, wrote in a spring progress report that Monica had read every book in the classroom library by February and had begun requesting books from the school library next door. She was patient with slower students, explaining assignments in her own words to classmates who hadn't understood the teacher's instructions. Mrs. Patterson wrote, "Monica has a gift for making other people feel capable. She will do something important with that." She tested into the gifted program at A.J. Rickoff Middle School and commuted 40 minutes each way by bus. She didn't complain. She read on the bus. By 8th grade, she had decided she wanted to be a teacher, not because anyone had told her she should, but because Mrs. Patterson's classroom was one of the few places in her childhood where she had felt that what she could do mattered more than what she had. She graduated from John Adams High School in 1991 with a 3.8 GPA and a small scholarship from the Greater Cleveland Community Foundation, $1,200 a year for 4 years, enough to cover books and a portion of housing at Cleveland State University. She was the first person in her immediate family to attend college. Evelyn kept the award letter in the same kitchen drawer as the budget notebook. She earned a Bachelor of Science in Education in May 1995. Her student teaching placement was at a middle school in East Cleveland with a 68% poverty rate and a chronic substitute teacher shortage. She was offered a permanent position before her placement ended. She took it at $24,800 a year and spent 4 years in that classroom teaching 7th grade English. Her evaluations were consistently strong. She was described as tireless, inventive, and deeply committed to the belief that student outcomes are not fixed by zip code. She completed her master's in educational administration at Ohio State in 2002, commuting on evenings and weekends while teaching full-time. She was hired as assistant principal at Franklin Heights Middle School in Columbus in 2003 at $58,000 a year. Her supervisor's evaluation at the end of her first year described her as one of the most mission-driven administrators he had worked with in 22 years. In August 2014, she was named principal of Eastbrook Academy, a title the first high school on the east side of Columbus where 63% of students qualified for free or reduced lunch, and the 4-year graduation rate was 61%, 18 points below the state average. The salary was $94,000. The challenge was considerable. The community welcomed her with cautious optimism. Within her first year, she launched the Eastbrook Academic Excellence Scholarship Fund, a private fund that she established and administered personally, soliciting donations from local businesses, alumni networks, and community donors. She told the school board it would operate outside the district's budget, funded entirely by community contributions, and would award annual scholarships directly to graduating seniors demonstrating financial need and academic merit. The school board approved it without conditions. The community donated. The local newspaper ran a story in June 2015 with a photograph of Monica Rivera and 5 smiling seniors beneath the headline, "Eastbrook Principal Gives Students a Path Forward." The 5 students in that photograph each received a congratulatory letter on school letterhead. None of them received any money. To understand how Monica Rivera stole $780,000 from a scholarship fund over 9 years without being caught, you first have to understand how privately administered school scholarship funds operate in Ohio, and why they contain a structural vulnerability that almost no one in education policy talks about. Ohio's public school district funding is governed by the State Department of Education and subject to regular audit. District budget line items, teacher salaries, facility maintenance, textbooks, technology are reviewed annually by the district's financial office and periodically by state auditors. There are controls. There is oversight. It is not a perfect system, but it has guardrails. Private scholarship funds are a different matter entirely. When a principal or administrator establishes a privately funded scholarship program, one that is not funded by district money, not administered through the district's finance office, and not formally structured as a 501c3 nonprofit, it may operate almost entirely outside the oversight infrastructure that governs everything else in the school. The fund accepts donations from private sources. It is managed by whoever established it. It distributes money according to criteria that the administrator defines. And in many cases, no one inside the school district or outside of it is independently verifying that the distributions actually happened. The Eastbrook Academic Excellence Scholarship Fund was not a registered nonprofit. It did not file Form 990s with the IRS. It did not have a board of directors. It did not have an independent financial officer. It had a fund administrator, Monica Carol Rivera. It had a bank account at a regional credit union in Columbus, opened in the fund's name with Rivera as the sole signatory. And it had a filing system, paper and digital, that Rivera maintained, controlled, and was never asked to produce for external review. The fund received donations through 2 channels. Direct checks, made out to the Eastbrook Academic Excellence Scholarship Fund, arrived from businesses, community organizations, and individuals who had seen the newspaper coverage or been solicited personally by Rivera. Those checks were deposited into the fund's credit union account. Online donations were processed through a third-party charitable giving platform, which transferred accumulated funds to the same account monthly. Rivera sent thank you letters to every donor on school letterhead. She sent scholarship award letters to students on school letterhead. She sent press releases to the local paper each June with photographs of that year's recipients. The oversight mechanism was a single annual report that Rivera submitted to the school board, a 1-page summary listing total donations received, total scholarships awarded, and the names of that year's recipients. No one on the school board requested bank statements. No one requested copies of the award checks. No one contacted the listed recipients to confirm they had received anything. No one verified that the students named actually existed in the school's enrollment records. The system was built on one foundational assumption, that the person who built the fund to help students was actually helping them. It did not account for the possibility that the help was entirely fictional. The first transfer came in September 2015, 3 months after the fund's inaugural award ceremony. It was $4,200, the accumulated balance of the first round of community donations, minus the $800 Rivera had retained in the account to keep it open and active-looking. She transferred it to a personal savings account she had opened at a different credit union under her maiden name, Monica Carol Watts, in April 2015, 2 months before the fund's inaugural ceremony, and before the first donation had arrived. She had opened the personal account before the fund held its first event. She had already decided what it was for. The 5 students named as scholarship recipients in June 2015 received congratulatory letters, a framed certificate Rivera had printed at a copy shop on Morse Road, and a handshake on stage at graduation. The letters referenced a disbursement that would be processed directly to their college financial aid offices in August. When August came, the students followed up with their colleges. Their financial aid offices had no record of any disbursement. When students contacted Rivera, she told them the processing had been delayed, that the fund's banking partner had a backlog, that it would be corrected by October. By October, most of them were enrolled in college and managing the shortfall by taking out additional loans. One student, a young woman named Kezia, dropped to part-time enrollment because she couldn't cover her housing costs without the scholarship she had been counting on. She assumed she had misunderstood the terms. She never complained to the school. She was 18 years old and didn't know who to call. Rivera was not caught, so she kept going. By 2016, the fund had developed a reputation in Columbus's East Side community as a genuine success story. A local credit union held a fundraising drive for it. A construction company donated $15,000 after Rivera gave a speech at their annual company luncheon. A church congregation took up a special collection. The donations were growing because the story Rivera told, dedicated principal fights for kids the system forgot, was true, in every respect except the one that mattered. She refined the process. She began naming some scholarship recipients who were former students, graduates from 2 or 3 years prior who were no longer in regular contact with the school and would be unlikely to publicly question an award they never received. She named others who had transferred before graduation or who had moved out of state. In a few cases, she named students who had actually applied to the fund and been told they were alternates, creating the appearance of a competitive selection process, and then listed them as recipients in years when the donation pool was especially large and she needed the numbers to look credible. She sent press releases to the Columbus Dispatch every June. The paper ran the story twice with photographs. Local television covered it once in 2019, a 2-minute segment on a morning news program showing Rivera presenting certificates at graduation while parents applauded. The amounts grew. In 2017, she transferred $68,000. In 2019, after the television segment aired and donations spiked, she transferred $112,000. She deposited the money in increments across 3 accounts: the original savings account, a checking account in her husband's name that he did not actively monitor, and beginning in 2020, a brokerage account she opened in her own name where she purchased index funds. The spending was restrained. A kitchen renovation, $34,000. A vacation home in a lake community in central Ohio, purchased in 2018 for $187,000, listed under her husband's name. A new Audi Q5 in 2020, paid for in cash. Her husband, a high school athletic director at a different Columbus school earning $72,000 a year, assumed the money came from Monica's salary and the careful saving she had always done. He had seen her track household expenses since the first year of their marriage. He trusted her with the accounts. He did not look closely. By June 2023, the running total she had taken from the fund reached $780,000. 214 students had been named as applicants, finalists, or recipients of a scholarship that had never paid out a single award in 9 years. The boldest detail, the one investigators would later describe as the clearest window into Rivera's state of mind, was the filing cabinet in her office. In the bottom drawer, behind a folder labeled Staff Development Resources, She kept printed copies of every fabricated award letter she had ever sent, organized chronologically, by year, with handwritten notes in the margins tracking which students she had already used, which ones were safe to name again, and which donor amounts she needed to match to make the annual report totals add up. She had kept records of the fraud as carefully as she had kept records of everything else in her life. She had just never imagined anyone would see them. The beginning of the end came in November 2023, not because of a state audit, not because a donor demanded an accounting, but because of a college roommate. Tochi Zed, 26 years old, a graduate student in social work at Ohio State, was home for Thanksgiving weekend when a conversation at the family dinner table turned to her younger cousin's college plans. The cousin, a junior at Eastbrook Academy, mentioned that she had applied to the Eastbrook Scholarship Fund and was hoping to be selected because the family needed the money for her first year. Tochi set down her fork. She had applied to the same scholarship fund 8 years earlier, as a senior at Eastbrook. She had been named a recipient. She had waited for a disbursement that never came. She had followed up, been told there was a delay, and eventually stopped following up because she was 19 and overwhelmed with the first semester of college and didn't have the energy to chase a check from a fund she was no longer certain she'd misunderstood. She had never told anyone. She had absorbed the shortfall in student loans. She had moved on. Sitting at her mother's dining room table, listening to her teenage cousin talk about the same fund with the same hope she had felt 8 years ago, Tochi Zed decided she was done being quiet about it. She filed a complaint with the Columbus City Schools District Office the Monday after Thanksgiving, describing her experience in specific detail: the award letter, the promised disbursement date, the follow-up conversations with Rivera's office, and the absence of any payment. She included the congratulatory letter she had kept in a folder in her parents' home for 8 years, still in the original envelope. The district's compliance officer, a former auditor named Gerald Watkins, received the complaint on November 27, 2023. He did not dismiss it. He cross-referenced Tochi's name against the fund's annual reports, confirmed she was listed as a 2015 recipient, and requested the fund's bank statements from the credit union under the district's administrative authority. The credit union provided 4 years of statements. Watkins looked at the deposit records first, then the withdrawals. Then he called the Ohio Auditor of State's office. The state audit team arrived at Eastbrook Academy on December 11, 2023. They requested 9 years of fund records. Rivera provided the filing cabinet herself, the same one with the fabricated award letters in the bottom drawer, behind the staff development folder. She apparently did not realize they would open that drawer. They did. The smoking gun was not the bank transfers. It was the handwritten notes in the margins of her own fabricated letters. Her private tracking system for managing the fraud documented the scheme in her own handwriting with more precision than any external investigator could have reconstructed from bank records alone. She had kept a meticulous record of every lie. January 9, 2024. A Tuesday, 7:48 a.m. Monica Rivera arrived at Eastbrook Academy 11 minutes before the first bell, as she did every morning. She had been the first administrator in the building every single day of her 9-year tenure. She considered it a point of personal discipline, a signal to the staff that leadership showed up before it asked anyone else to. She unlocked the main office, started the coffee maker in the break room, reviewed the day's attendance alerts on her desktop, and pulled up her calendar. She had a budget meeting at 9, a parent conference at 11, a senior honors assembly at 2. She did not know that the Ohio Attorney General's office had issued an arrest warrant 17 days earlier, or that investigators had been coordinating her arrest date around the school calendar to minimize disruption to students. At 7:56 a.m., 2 investigators from the Ohio Attorney General's Office of Criminal Justice entered the building through the main entrance, both in plain clothes, both with credentials displayed. The front desk administrator recognized that something was wrong before they said a word. They asked for Principal Rivera. She was called to the front office over the intercom, a routine enough request that no one on staff thought anything of it. Rivera came around the corner from the administrative hallway into the main office carrying a coffee mug and a folder she had been reviewing. She stopped when she saw the investigators. The lead investigator, a 12-year veteran of the AG's Financial Crimes Unit, named Investigator Sandra Cole, spoke first. "Ms. Rivera, I'm Investigator Cole, Ohio Attorney General's office. This is Investigator Reyes." We need to speak with you. Rivera looked at the folder in her hand, then at the investigators, then at the front desk administrator, who looked away. What is this regarding? The Eastbrook Academic Excellence Scholarship Fund. We have a warrant for your arrest. There was a pause of approximately 4 seconds, long enough that Investigator Reyes shifted his weight forward. I have given everything to these kids, Rivera said. Everything. Every single year. I found money for students who had nothing. Investigator Cole looked at her steadily. Ms. Rivera, turn around, please. You don't understand what this school is. What these families go through. I built something here. I built something real. We've reviewed the fund records. All 9 years. Turn around. Her voice dropped. I was going to make it right. I had a plan to pay it back. I just needed more time. Turn around, please. Hands behind your back. She turned around. The handcuffs went on at 8:01 a.m. 3 staff members watched from the hallway outside the main office. The front desk administrator was still looking at her desk. In the cafeteria 40 feet away, students were eating breakfast, talking, scrolling their phones, entirely unaware that the woman who had told them for 9 years that she was fighting for their futures was being walked out of the building in handcuffs. Her office keys were surrendered at the front desk. Her district ID was deactivated before she reached the parking lot. She was transported to the Franklin County Correctional Center and processed before 10 a.m. The budget meeting at 9 started without her. The district sent an interim administrator by noon. Before we get to sentencing, if accountability coverage like this matters to you, subscribe. These stories don't make the front page, and they should. We cover them every week. The Franklin County Grand Jury indicted Monica Rivera on 38 counts in January 2024, 12 counts of theft by deception, 9 counts of telecommunications fraud, 8 counts of misuse of a charitable solicitation, 5 counts of forgery, and 4 counts of money laundering. The Ohio Attorney General's office prosecuted the case. Rivera's defense attorney argued that she had suffered from a financial crisis following her husband's medical bills in 2015, bills that had not been publicly documented, and that the scheme had begun as a temporary measure she had intended to repay. He noted her nearly 30 years of legitimate public service, her spotless performance record, and letters submitted by parents and community members who had seen genuine good in her work. Then the prosecution presented the victim's statements. Tochi Zed, 26, the graduate student whose Thanksgiving conversation started the investigation, testified first. I spent 8 years thinking I had misunderstood something. That maybe the award wasn't what I thought. That maybe I should have pushed harder. I took out $6,000 in additional loans my first year because I was counting on money that was never going to come. I'm still paying those loans. I will be paying them for 4 more years. She looked at Rivera directly. I was 18 years old and I trusted that the letter I got meant something. I framed the certificate. I still have it at my parents' house. I don't know what to do with it now. Kezia Mensah, 27, who had dropped to part-time college enrollment in 2015 because she couldn't cover housing costs after the scholarship didn't arrive, testified by written statement read into the record by the prosecutor. I did not finish my degree. I enrolled part-time, and then I stopped entirely because I was working 2 jobs, and I couldn't keep up. I have always told myself I would go back. I haven't gone back. I don't know if I will. The $5,000 I was told I was receiving would have changed that first year. I needed exactly that much to stay enrolled full-time. I had it in my budget. Then it wasn't there. I adjusted. I have been adjusting ever since. I want the court to know that a scholarship is not an abstract number to an 18-year-old who has never had anything extra. It is the difference between staying and leaving. Tom Webb, 24, a 2019 Eastbrook graduate who had been named a scholarship recipient and received a certificate and a letter on school letterhead, testified in person. He had not told his mother the money hadn't arrived. She had been so proud of the award that he hadn't wanted to take that from her. She still has the letter on the refrigerator. She shows it to people. She tells them her son won a scholarship from his high school principal. He paused. I haven't told her. I don't know how to tell her. Rivera showed no visible reaction throughout any of the testimony. The jury deliberated for 11 hours over 2 days. On April 3, 2024, they returned guilty verdicts on 35 of 38 counts. The 3 counts of telecommunications fraud related to the online donation platform were dismissed on a jurisdictional question. The guilty verdicts on the remaining 35 counts were unanimous. Sentencing was held June 18, 2024, in Franklin County Common Pleas Court. Judge Raymond Fega presiding. The courtroom was full. Parents, alumni, and community donors sat in the gallery. Tochi Zed was in the front row. Judge Fega addressed the defendant directly. Ms. Rivera, you told this community a story for 9 years. And the story was true in every detail except the one that actually mattered. You told them that students from this school, students who had very little, who were the children and grandchildren of people who worked hard and saved carefully and still could not provide what a college education costs. You told them that those students were being seen, that their work was being rewarded, that someone at the front of that school was fighting for their futures. That story was real to every person who heard it. It was real to the donors who gave. It was real to the parents who sat in those graduation seats and watched their children shake your hand and accept a certificate. It was real to the students. They built plans around it. They made decisions based on it. They told their families. They framed the letters. And it was entirely, deliberately, systematically false. 214 students. 9 graduating classes. Not $1. You did not take from a corporation. You did not take from an abstraction. You took from teenagers who had done everything right, who had applied, who had competed, who had been told they had won. And then you watched them walk across that stage and shake your hand, and you let them go home believing that someone had invested in them. And then you spent their money on a lake house. This was not a crisis. This was not a moment of weakness. You opened the account before the first donation arrived. You built the tracking system in your own handwriting. You maintained it for 9 years. This was your plan. This court sentences you to 9 years in the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. You are ordered to pay restitution of $780,412 to be distributed through a court-administered fund to verified former recipients and applicants of the Eastbrook Academic Excellence Scholarship Fund. You are permanently and irrevocably barred from employment in any educational institution, any nonprofit organization, and any role involving the management of funds held in trust for others. You told these children you were fighting for them. 9 years. Monica Rivera was remanded to custody immediately. She showed no visible reaction. As she was escorted from the courtroom, Tochi Zed watched her go and did not look away. Monica Rivera is currently incarcerated at the Ohio Reformatory for Women in Marysville, Ohio. Her 9-year sentence, with standard Ohio good behavior credit of 15%, puts her earliest possible release at 2032. She will be 59 years old. The lake house in Central Ohio has been sold as part of the restitution order. The Audi Q5 has been seized. The brokerage account has been liquidated. The kitchen renovation cannot be undone. The proceeds of every recoverable asset covered approximately $230,000 of the $780,000 owed. The remaining $550,000 is subject to a civil judgment that will follow her indefinitely. Her husband filed for divorce in March 2024. He has not made any public statement. He spent 19 years believing his wife's careful accounting of the household finances was evidence of her character. It was. Tochi Zed completed her master's degree in social work in May 2024. She has given one interview since the sentencing to a Columbus community news outlet. She said she hoped former Eastbrook students who had been named as applicants or recipients of the fund would come forward to be included in the restitution process. She said, "You are not imagining it. The letter was real. The ceremony was real. The money was never there. That is not your fault, and you are owed something." As of the time of this recording, 63 former students have submitted verified claims to the court-administered restitution fund. The restitution fund currently holds $230,000. The math does not work out evenly. It never does in cases like this. Kezia Mensah, who dropped to part-time enrollment in 2015 and never returned to finish her degree, submitted a claim in September 2024. She is considering re-enrollment. She has not decided yet. Tom Webb told his mother. She took the letter off the refrigerator. He said she was quiet for a long time. Then she said she was proud of him for telling her. The certificate is still somewhere in the house. He isn't sure where. The Columbus City Schools District has implemented mandatory independent auditing for any privately administered scholarship fund operating under a school's name or using school letterhead, with annual verification that award disbursements have been received by named recipients. The policy took effect in January 2024. 9 years too late for 214 students who walked across a stage holding a certificate that meant nothing. Monica Rivera will be eligible for release in 2032. She will be 59 years old. Kezia Mensah is still deciding whether to go back to school. Stories like this don't get the attention they deserve. If this kind of accountability coverage matters to you, subscribe and turn on notifications. The case on your screen right now, the position of trust was even higher. The victims were even more vulnerable. Click it now.